How come we have to type in our entire resume and then attach our resume as well? Like, I don't know who Big Resume is, but we need to have a word with them. The resume, the summary of all of your accomplishments, everything you've ever done, all on one piece of paper. The concept seems a little bit overwhelming. And maybe there's a critic inside of you saying, is it really necessary in today's day and age? Do I have to have a great resume? Deep breath, because on today's edition of The Interview, we're going to learn about what has to be on your resume, what are recruiters and hiring managers looking for, and we'll pass along some of those tips and tricks so your resume can be exactly what it needs to be. Merri Beckfield, Executive Program Director for the MARS Returnship Program, is going to be our guest today. Merri, it is great to see you. We want to learn a little bit more about you. Tell us about what you're doing now with the MARS program.
Certainly. So I am the Executive Program Director for the MARS Returnship Program, which is a program to help folks who've taken a career break in technology get back into the workforce. So a way for me to give back to the field.
That's a wonderful way to stay engaged and make a difference. Kudos for you. Let's just ask the big question. Do we still need to have a resume?
Yes, in today's day and age, it's still very important. That is one of the primary ways for you to get connected to potential employers. If you think about it from the hiring manager's perspective, they want to know who you are, why you want that role, and what you know that is pertinent to the role.
Okay. What if you don't have one? I mean, where do you start if you don't have a resume at the moment?
One of the easiest ones is if you just go out on the internet and Google resume template, resume examples, start looking at them. Jot down on a piece of paper your contact information, information about your past roles. What have you accomplished? What value would you bring to the table? Look at those examples on the internet, put one together yourself in Microsoft Word type format. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, there are resume services out there as well where you can hire somebody to help you with it.
Are there any additional things that we have to remember to put on there?
Absolutely. So make sure you have your name, your email, your phone number, your contact information right at the top. Believe it or not, I've actually seen resumes that have had good content, but they're missing a name, or they have the name, but I have no way to get in contact with the individual. So beyond that, typically you'll put a summary at the top, maybe 2 or 3 bullets, just who you are, your brand. If you're in the technology field, it's good to put a skills section where you just list what technology you know. And then you get into the section where you want to include what prior work experience you have that's relevant. It doesn't have to be a specific similar job you've done. Any job you do, you're picking up transferable skills that the employer may be very interested in knowing what you did and what you accomplished in that role.
How do we pull out those transferable skills that someone might want to see?
Think about what is it that you did that is applicable to any job. So one of my favorite stories is in the book by General Colin Powell. He had a job sweeping the floor at a Pepsi bottling plant. And in that book, he talks about how much he learned there and how relevant that role was to who he became. So don't undersell yourself. You've learned something, you added value, call that out.
So any words of advice on how to muster up that courage to toot our own horn?
The way that I do it sometimes is I will just ask a friend or a former coworker, and they sometimes can give you some suggestions and tips. Another way is look on the internet for resumes that are similar to your background and see how other people have worded those things.
I do just need to vent for a second on behalf of job seekers. How come we have to type in our entire resume into the freaking computer form and then attach our resume as well? Like, I don't know who Big Resume is, but we need to have a word with them because that is BS.
When you submit your resume online to a role, most places and most employers are using bots to scan that. And there are some tips on how to make your resume bot friendly. First of all, you do want to use keywords. So every time you submit a resume to a role, you want to make sure to tailor it a bit and customize it to highlight some of the keywords that you have that they are looking for. So for example, instead of just saying, as a software developer, I programmed for 6 years, that's very non-specific. You want to put in keywords. So if you know Java or you know JavaScript, You want to make sure that those specific words are in there if that is something that employer is looking for. If you
Mhm.
managed or you led or you completed or you maintained, sometimes managers will be scanning for those. Number two is keep it simple. The bots does not do well with columns, underlining, graphics. And then finally, some of the software that's used cannot handle PDFs. So best bet is submit it in a Word document format. For me, what I have done in the past is I will just have a cheat sheet of all my pertinent information that's typically
Mm.
asked on forms. So I don't have to rethink it every time.
Do the little things matter anymore? Grammar, spelling, punctuation?
Yes, it's important. And if you think about it nowadays, with all the assistance with grammar that you can get online, Microsoft flags the stuff. Pay attention to those things, make sure it's correct. They're skimming, so make it as easy as possible. Hiring managers probably spend 30 seconds looking at a resume. You don't want that short time frame to be them going, oh my God, they misspelled that. You want them to be like, oh, looks like they got the skills I want. I'm going to put them in the pile, get a meeting set up.
What about the temptation that exists when building a resume that maybe you led a project when you contributed to it, or you opened a new store when in reality you were just the manager? Like, would you recommend overselling? Because this gets into that, how confident can you be when you talk about your accomplishments?
I would avoid overselling so much that it becomes untruthful because people
Hmm.
will check. The problem that most people have is they undersell themselves. They're like, well, I just did that. It wasn't that important. It's like, it was important. Otherwise, someone wouldn't have hired you to do it, right? It's okay if you did it and you didn't do a great job at it, still claim it. And if somebody asks you about it, you can talk about what you learned from it.
Can we touch on LinkedIn for a minute? And is it
Sure.
important as you do your resume and start applying to have your LinkedIn up and polished with the same fervor that you will a resume?
Yes, if I look at your resume and then I go find you on LinkedIn and your work history is completely different, then I'm like, are you just telling me what I want to hear on the resume? So the resume's purpose is specific to job hunting, job seeking. LinkedIn's purpose is to help you build your social network, which ultimately then may help you with your career.
One of my final questions talks about how clear we need to be on the role we're
Mhm.
exactly qualified for. Or can we say, I've done the job that's one below, but I think I'm ready for the one above?
If you feel ready for a role, apply for it. A lot of job seekers will apply for something where they meet 50% of the requirements, but other people feel like they have to meet 100%. You
Mhm.
don't, right? I, as a hiring manager, have put my job description out there. It is my Christmas wish list to find somebody who meets all those requirements, but you never do. And so they're going to hire when you have a certain amount of the skills and if you show the potential to gain those other skills.
It's been a great discussion. Merri Beckfield, Executive Program Director for the MARS Returnship Program. Thanks again for coming on the show. We really appreciate you helping out some folks today.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Pat Miller, the Idea Coach, here from the Interview Podcast. If you enjoyed this information and you want to watch more of the podcast or some other helpful videos like resume tips, interview best practices, and more career training info, you can get it on our website. And here's the best part. It's all free. Check out the website at careerdevelopmentsolutions.com/webinars. One more time, that's careerdevelopmentsolutions.com/webinars. See you there.